Farm, food, facts, where every farmer, every acre, and every voice matter. Welcome to the Farm Food Facts Interactive Podcast presented by the U.S. Farmers and Ranchers Alliance for Wednesday, November 28th, 2018. All of us at U.S. Farmers and Ranchers Alliance hope you and yours had a terrific Thanksgiving. Today, our thought leader is U.S. Farmers and Ranchers CEO Erin Fitzgerald. Then we'll speak with Don Cameron of Terranova Ranch in Helm, California, who will discuss sustainability on the farm and the California weather events and challenges that he and other farmers deal with, including drought, forest fires, and climate change. Let's get started. Erin, you just attended the Sustainable Ag Summit and led a panel discussion. What was the top line from the summit?
You know, I think the summit is just really grown in the last 4 years, the Sustainable Ag Summit, and you see many of each commodity's roundtables getting together. So there's the beef roundtable, field to market, the dairy stewardship and sustainability index, stewardship for specialty crop, and a new roundtable called the poultry sustainable roundtable. And you're seeing each one of the commodities really get together one time a year in a conference, and what I see is that sustainability is kind of now on the forefront of each one of the commodities, as well as many of the brands and retailers. And this is an event that allows everyone to get together and share resources. I think the real question is, how do we collaborate more than just at a conference, but every single day?
Mm-hmm. And, you know, Erin, when I look at these roundtables that you're describing, so you've got pork over here, you've got poultry over here, and so on. What's the process? And perhaps this is, you know, U.S. Farmers and Ranchers Alliance role, but what's the process for each of these roundtables to talk to the other roundtables so that we're not just having poultry doing their thing and beef doing their thing and dairy doing their thing, but we really look from a holistic approach to agriculture, both for retailers, for the industry, for consumers. Talk to me about how that is working or what needs to be done.
Yeah, it's a great question. It starts first with the farmer, where many of the requests and the information or the place-based change that needs to happen is actually on a farm. And many of our farmers themselves are growing multiple commodities. So, many of our farmers are getting, upwards of 5 to 15 different types of supply chain scorecards. And it's all the intent of these roundtables to eliminate and have a more harmonized approach. But we have to realize, for example, if you're feeding cows or pigs, there's corn and soybean connects right into that. Field to Market's done a fantastic job of working with and through the various groups, but we have to think of our farms as an integrated system where measurement flows from the field to the farmer and then, of course, to the consumer. But we need to make certain that we are having the farmers really tell us what works on their farm to measure and track continuous improvement. And the farmers must be in those conversations. Otherwise, we're all kind of asking that question like, hey, it's 70 degrees and fluorescent in this conference, and we're saying what can happen, on a farm.
Right.
And, that was really what the panel was all about.
So, it's interesting. You talk about farmers with multiple crops. We're going to be talking to Don Cameron in a bit. And, I can't count the amount of crops that he's running on his 7,500 acres, but we'll talk to him a bit more about that. Now, I know, Erin, that there are some major retailers that attended the Sustainable Agriculture Summit, but typically retailers don't come. What can you share with retailers about what happened at the summit? What was its outcomes that they need to know?
Yeah, I think we would love to see retailers get more involved in these sustainability conversations. One, retailers do seem to be the front lines of where the consumer is looking for this information. They want to come into any retail space and understand that the products that made it to their shelf is responsibly sourced. But I think we in the food and agricultural sector need to do a good job of making certain that we're giving you easy information that you can communicate to your consumer on trust and understanding where their food comes from, and let the farmer speak for themselves. You know, more than anything, I think the retailers are great at telling good stories,
Hmm.
and that goes far beyond what you see in terms of measurement. You know, a lot of what we've been doing in this roundtable space is figure out the measurement, and now I think we have a bigger responsibility to really let the farmers speak for themselves, talk about how farming is produced today, and educate the consumer on many of these things that are really kind of confusing. But the farmer is the best person to tell how food is produced today.
It is. And I think we've also seen a change where, the farmer started out, and I'm not going to give a timeline to this, but the farmer started out worrying about their own farm. Then they
Hmm.
expanded to talking to other farmers to learn from each other. And now we're really seeing where the farmer, whether it's on social media or in person or on TV, is really out there not only telling their story, but educating consumers. I mean, farmers today are what celebrity chefs were 10 years ago. And I think that
Hmm.
the difference is that consumers were entertained by celebrity chefs, but they're being empowered and educated by farmers.
Yeah, I think our farmers have, just like a chef, they have very specific things that they're doing on their farm. It's a little bit of an art and a science, and depending on the weather of that day. And it's a great story. People are fascinated by it. It's biology that's unfolding before our eyes every single day, and the farmer is the steward of that. So it's it in many ways it is. Consumers are interested and they want to know, and I think it's our job to connect those stories and the people, as you'll meet Don, to the science and the stories that go with it.
Absolutely. Erin, as always, thanks for your insights and your leadership. New holiday survey results, State of Grocery Retail Report. More than 2,000 U.S. consumers were surveyed for Phonomics State of Grocery Retail Report. This survey detects patterns in consumer shopping habits specifically during the holiday season. With the holiday season now fully upon us, grocers really need to step up their game according to the survey findings. Everything from a store's layout to their grab and go option is fair game, as stats from the research found that folks think that grocers need to rethink the checkout lane. And you're going to be surprised at this. And they want to improve upon customer convenience and efficiency. One important finding for farmers nationwide is that the survey found that 25% of consumers want more fresh produce offered at the checkout stand this holiday season, similar to what many C-stores around the nation have been doing for years. It's time to replace the candy, salty snacks, and sodas. Surprisingly enough, only 43% of consumers do most of their holiday food shopping at regional locations. Convenience is still important and an opportunity, as 1 in 6 consumers want pre made holiday meal offerings to make their lives easier this time of year. The majority of shoppers view themselves as loyal to one grocery store for the majority of their shopping. However, during the holiday season, shopping habits adjust a bit, with more than 34% of those surveyed making various trips to different stores. What grocers need to know is that this survey gives retailers insight on how they can best appeal to their customers this holiday season. Grocers need to embrace in store innovation to attract the next generation of consumers, consider factors such as in store layout, technology, product stocking, and placement, have a better understanding of the holiday shopping preferences of Generation Z and millennial consumers, and get those produce offerings at the checkout. And while surveys are the one viable way to determine what consumers want, technology continues to provide new and unique ways to determine just what consumers desire most, even if they don't know what they want. KFC and Baidu joined forces regarding facial recognition. Take a look at that chicken's face. Baidu, a Chinese multinational technology company which specializes in internet related services, products, and artificial intelligence, and KFC China are collaborating on a smart restaurant in Beijing, which is a long way from the first time I went to Tiananmen Square's KFC, which had two doors, one for locals and one for tourists, with different prices for each. This new high tech endeavor will utilize facial recognition, including components such as age, gender, and facial expression, including your mood will be inferred. to suggest things that a customer may like to order. Now, I'm wondering just how my face has to look in order to order a double Whopper with extra cheese, hold the ketchup. Well, this technology will be exclusive to designated Beijing locations, and this particular restaurant will also offer augmented reality games. The facial recognition kiosk will create a database of images that will offer the ability to identify repeat customers and provide suggestions based on their order history. So, what happens if the next time I do want ketchup? Perhaps raising my left eyebrow? Well, what grocers need to know is supermarkets can look at the innovations taking place in fast food around the world and bring them to every supermarket in the US. This type of data technology can help retailers determine just what foods their consumers most desire and thereby share the insights with farmers and ranchers to determine what crops and livestock are in high demand. And speaking of crops that are currently in high demand, young farmers are cashing in on hemp. As production costs continue to rise and commodity prices continue to fall, farming has become less profitable. However, young and innovative farmers believe that growing hemp could alleviate some of the financial stress that can impact a farmer's mental health. Hemp typically secures significantly higher prices per acre than traditional crops, so that this crop could provide farmers with more financial stability. Hemp is also one of the most durable and reliable crops to grow. The shift towards legislation to grow hemp in the U.S. is likely to change, as Mitch McConnell has stated that Congress will likely legalize hemp on a federal level as part of the 2018 Farm Bill. It's no secret that in addition to the hemp opportunity, CBD, a cannabis compound that has significant medical benefits, is growing in popularity and consumer demand. CPD is infused in everything these days, from food products to skincare, and a recent report expects the CBD market to hit $22 billion by 2022. This green rush is inspiring smart young farmers to pursue new opportunities in hemp agriculture. Hemp seeds contain complete protein, essential fats, and fiber without any extra carbohydrates. It also contains an essential omega, GLA, that helps the body's hormones work better. What grocers need to know is that farmers and retailers should keep an eye on the evolving market for hemp and CBD, as the demand for cannabis-related products continues to grow. And while hemp agriculture continues to thrive, unfortunately, other crops are hitting roadblocks from Mother Nature, which are hindering their success. California wine grape growers must deal with damage from catastrophic wildfires. As reported in the Sacramento Bee, the Camp Fire in Butte County is already the deadliest in the state's history. And along with the Woolsey Fire in the Malibu area, California has lost a total to date of 1,627,652 acres. Wow, to wildfires so far just in 2018. And amidst the ash of this ongoing blaze, California has already spent more than half of its annual budget for fire in just 40 days. California wine and ag groups are responding to the state's detrimental wildfires and their effects. These groups are seeking federal and state financial help for the state's wine grape growers so that they can recover from the damage of the catastrophic fires. Ideally, they'd like an emergency funding package allotted to ag producers suffering from this year's natural disasters. What grocers need to know is that as a multitude of natural disasters, from tropical storms to wildfires, continue to plague the nation, it's important that retailers understand what has happened to local producers and do their best to support their efforts within their communities and with their legislators as well. It's time to hear direct from the farmer. This week is California's own Don Cameron. Don is one of the region's most diverse growers, producing almonds, wine grapes, processing tomatoes, pistachios, walnut, carrots, onions, and lettuce seed on almost 7,500 of acres. In 2017, Don was named the Agriculturist of the Year and is the current president of the California State Board of Food and Agriculture. Don, thanks for joining us. And let me start off by offering all of our heartbreak for what California farmers and ranchers have been going through. First with the drought, now with the fires. What's the current state of affairs?
Well, thank you, Phil. I really appreciate being part of your program today. Our heart goes out and prayers go out to, all the fire victims and their families who lost their homes throughout the Camp Fire and the recent fire in Malibu. It just seems that every year we're getting more intense fires. That are just year after every year they're more record-setting and more destructive. Last year we had Sonoma County
Mhm.
was really hard hit, and this year it's been the Redding area, Southern California, Malibu area, Paradise. 26,000 people, homes wiped off the face of the earth. So we really we know that a lot of people that are involved in farming were affected by this, but mainly indirectly. But a lot of people live in those areas. So we're really really sorry to see what's happened here.
I was going to say, you say indirectly and directly. So, fortunately, your farm, your 7,500 acres were not affected. But what about the smoke? What about the residue from these fires? Does that have any effect on your farm and how you have to deal with managing the soil and your crops?
Yeah, interesting. During August, we had some fires to the north of us that actually um, filtered out part of the sun, and
Hmm.
we've had issues with the extreme heat the last few years, and we were actually seeing a little bit of actual benefit, if you can believe that,
Wow.
from the high altitude smoke. The sun was not as intense, and the quality of the peppers we were growing during that period was actually a little bit better. So
Interesting.
indirect, but then I guess the downside is later we've had this smoke down on ground level, and it looked like a fog during November and late October, to where the air quality is so bad, it long term it affects all of us. We live here, we breathe the air,
Mhm.
and I'm just hoping this isn't our new norm here in California.
So Don, as a farmer, I mean, you've been focused on inputs, water, soil health, all these other things. Now you have to deal with these external forces from fires, from drought. You know, you're turning into a scientist. You have to turn into a scientist to know how to deal with it. You talk about, the sun being hidden for a while and the effect of that. I've gotta just imagine that your head is exploding with all this stuff.
We deal with that. We're dealing with trying to bring new technology on farm to so that we can grow our crops more efficiently, more sustainably, and produce better quality. So it's a never ending learning process for us. Uh, no, I've learned more about our soils and about our water that's underneath our feet and our ground, probably than I ever would have imagined.
So,
We're always in the forefront.
yeah, put your hat on as president of the California State Board of Food and Agriculture. What are you hearing from other farmers and ranchers, in respect to this? Look, you're at the cutting edge. You get it. Are there smaller farmers that are really just frustrated with all that's going on with the climate, all that's going on with the inputs, and they're throwing up their hands and they're saying, "Don, help, help."
Well, I think what I've seen from a lot of the local growers here is that our number one issue is always water,
Mhm.
but number two is labor, and third is the regulatory system that we have. That we're not saying is bad, but it just becomes uh, a lot of burden for the growers, especially the smaller growers. I think there's a lot that are retiring, and they really don't have anyone to pass it on to. And I think you're seeing some of the larger growers are getting larger. The smaller growers, you're not seeing the influx into California agriculture that you used to. It's you almost have to be. I'm not saying you have to be big, but to be able to have the resources to survive in the environment we have today, it helps. There's no question.
I want to go back to
Uh,
the fires for a second. You talk about regulations, and there's lots of stories that are out there and so on. But when we look at forestry, what should the government, what should environmentalists really know about what we're doing to protect our forests so that we don't have these fires that consume over 1.5 million acres? What are we doing wrong, if anything?
well, I think that there's a misconception of what a forest should look like. We deal with the state foresters, and they like to do some vegetative burning during a period of time that it's not going to burn down the forest, where they can do low temperature burns that will clear out some of the understory within the forest. And so many times we have a disagreement between environmental groups and science, forestry science, to where we just can't get by that impasse. It turns into a real issue to where when we do have a fire, we get really intense fires that jump from the understory to the tops of the trees, the crown fires, and burn so intensely that they just burn everything up, seeds, living plants, everything. Rather than trying to manage the forest, have open areas, throughout the forest. It's hard to change that, and it's hard to change the perception of what a forest should look like.
Hmm.
Um, we know that you do have to manage forests just like we manage our fields here.
Right.
It's a different type of management, but left alone, we're going to continue to have issues like this. And we talk to the forestry departments, and they understand that yeah, we have intense, dense growth that needs to be opened up. So we do have some natural fire breaks, but it's a tough job. It's a tough sell.
Sure. So, Don, I also know that collaboration, is a very important message that you continue to share across the entire supply chain. How are all these agriculture groups working together and collaborating?
Well, lately it's been there's been a lot of work on food safety. So many of the crops, especially the fresh crops that are not processed, we have FSMA, which is the Food Safety Act. We have our leafy greens marketing agreement that is voluntary, but has put standards in place to try and work on food safety. I mean, we know nothing's 100%, but the growers in California have been extremely proactive
Hmm.
in putting together programs to make the safest fresh food available to the consumer. I think we have a great story to tell. Um, and Erin said it earlier. The farmers uh, speak for themselves. I know many of my friends will 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 get on social media and tell the story themselves, but we'd like to see a better connection with our buyers. We'd like to see the buyers come to us and really take a look at what we're doing. Um, we're extremely innovative. We're very sustainable. We just have a great story of what we're doing out here, and I think that's missed many times. And I know that when I deal with buyers, the primary discussion is over price and food safety,
Yeah.
and we really don't get into the sustainability programs that we have in place on farm.
Yeah, and that's so important because that's what we're hearing from consumers. They want to know about the sustainability, and farmers are doing it, and using the retail environment to share that is just so important. Well, Don, I look forward to visiting Terranova Ranch soon, and thank you for all your great work and your leadership.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us on Farm Food Facts. For more information on all things food and agriculture and to listen to our archives, please visit fooddialogues.com under the Programs and Media tab. Until next week.